Welcome to In the Kitchen with Todd Rosenlieb. Today we are cooking with Todd Rosenlieb of Todd Rosenlieb Dance. And we're going to be making a baked brie and spinach artichoke dip and...
minus the spinach.
Minus, oh, just
yeah,
artichoke.
Just artichoke.
Just artichoke.
Yes, and it's going to have a lot of good garlic.
Yeah, no, I saw the garlic.
Yes.
I'm excited about the garlic. So that's going to be our show today. And we'll be talking a little bit with Todd about dancing and eating, and then we're going to eat, and it's just going to be great.
Dana, thank you for letting me be your inaugural chef.
Yes, for being my guinea pig.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's sort of half homemade, but I got to tell you that the recipes we're doing today are right from my mother's kitchen. She had 3 sons, raised 3 sons, and then loved to entertain at the same time. So she had a series of recipes that were lickety-split, she'd say. And those recipes tasted like you spent hours, felt like they were made from the heart, which they always were, but they don't take a lot of effort, right? So that's the kind of thing I like as well.
Heartfelt food does not have to take tons of time.
That's right. So we're going to make a baked brie. And most often phyllo dough is used with a baked brie, but this one's a little bit more peasant-y. And again, it's half homemade. So I did make the cheese, and I leave that to the French, because they're awfully good at it, since it's named in their language. And I like to get a wheel. You can use a wedge. You could get a great big wheel if you wanted to, or a couple of wedges and put them onto a pan. Notice that the pan is covered with tin foil. That is to help transfer it later onto a prettier plate. That's essential. Or, you know, as my friends say, get that over here now. We don't care that it's on the cookie sheet covered with tin foil.
Doesn't have to be fancy. Just put
That's exactly
get it in my belly.
That's right. So the first thing we do is place it onto the pan, and when we get ready to use it, I will bring the bread over here. But the next step we're going to take is that I've preheated the oven already at the degrees that it has on the bread sticks. Half homemade. Okay, I'm going to bake them, but they are put together for me.
My mom would say that this is a really big battle because she will not open those. They scare her.
Well, notice that the pop wasn't too drastic.
Yeah.
And we pull it out, and make sure your surface areas are clean. I did a little antibacterial earlier, and we want to make sure that you keep that clean. Now, as you work with this dough, it's good to keep it in the fridge until just before you use it. And then you've got to find the edge of the breadsticks, which is just a little bit of a challenge, but we've got that underhand right now. And now this is where you can pretend to be an artist. Because although I am a dance artist, I am not a sculptor, and I like to pretend that I am a bread sculptor when it comes to making baked brie. So there are many ways to do it, and you may be doing your own creative way. So what I usually do is take each bread stick and I put them end to end, and I sort of glue them together, and I take 3. And this is where the German, Bavarian, Austrian part of my life, I think, comes in handy, because you take those 3 and you create a simple braid with the breadsticks, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Remember that it's going to blow up in the oven, turn golden brown, and it's going to be covered with some other delicious things. I'm going to make all of these before we go over and wrap it around. And notice that some of them get a little stringy. Sure. No big deal. Don't be too particular. Remember, the best of food often looks the ugliest. And the best of cheeses are stinky and moldy. And I like all of those things. So we just braid it on down. And take a moment to let that sit. And we're going to bring over our brie wheel. I'm going to transfer that out of the way a little bit. And we're going to see how we've done. What you want to do is encase or make a wreath around your baked brie with the breadstick braid. That's a lot of B's. Brie breadstick braids. Now, there's usually some ugly zone where it matches up, and that's where we start to endeavor on our next series of tricks. Yes, so you see that I bring it up here, and it's important that you connect it, because as the brie wheel bakes, the cheese gets very melty, and you don't want it to spill out until someone actually eats it. And then if that happens, it's great. Now, when you get the little connectors that might not look so good, a couple of things that I do, and this is where you can get more creative. or less creative, is that I create something that will end up looking like a rosette. So I just take the bread, I wrap it around my finger, and you see that creates a little bit of a nubby little rose-shaped thing there. And now remember, that's going to grow as we go, yes, and I'm going to create another one for the other side.
I'm so impressed right now.
Oh, please, don't be impressed. It's, you know, it's like what you did with your gum when your mother told you to put it back in your mouth. Yeah. So it's not too difficult. And you want to make sure that they're on there. Sometimes they roll off. It's sort of a crapshoot to see how it's going to end up in the end. Now remember that you're making this bread wreath around it, or wrapping it in bread, and eventually that's going to be what you eat the brie with. So part of it is it looks pretty for about 1 minute and 50 seconds until people taste it. Then what I do also is I create some leaves, and I take the little leaves and I bring it there, and I'm going to grab me a fork. And I use just the opposite end of the fork to press that in and see if I can really sort of connect the two, so that when it does bake and expands, it doesn't decide to come out looking more like a cubist Picasso rather than a...
Sure, going for a little more realism.
Yes, yeah, a little more realism. All right. And we'll finish the sculpture now. I have sometimes used a bigger wheel and made a whole lattice work, like an old-fashioned apple pie or a strudel.
Which is not as hard as it would seem. It always looks impressive, but it's not that hard to do.
That's right, that's right. And you can twist them when you cross it, however you like. And, you know, depending on what kind of leaves you like, what kind of flowers you want to make, I have made flattered flowers that look like daisies, and that worked out great, too. For the most part, I'm making it in a hurry, so however it looks, I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best part of all.
Excellent.
All right. Okay. Now, the interesting part is that we have some leftover breadsticks that are getting gushy, and we want to twist those, and we want to make those as well, because those can go as extra bread to eat the brie, because you'll eat around the brie, and eventually you'll run out of the lovely wreath-shaped brie bread, and you'll want to move on to the breadsticks. So as you see, it gets softer, it gets a little harder to manipulate, but once again, pretty is as pretty does. And you see our oven is going to be ready to plop this in when we get ready. It's at 375 or whatever the temperature is on the bread. Now, I suggest, my mother suggested that we use the time that's on the actual bread sticks as our time, but I found that I often need a little bit more time than what's on the container. But that depends on your oven and all of those goodies. So, we see here that we've got our dough in place. It is wrapped around. Our wreath is trying to stay together, and I will keep struggling with that until we get it in the oven. And the next thing I'm going to do is take a little butter, and I'm going to throw it in the microwave. Now, I'm a big fan of the kitchen scissor. I'll use it for just about anything, except cutting your hair. And throw it in the microwave. I'm so glad you can't see how dirty that microwave is. And we're just going to put that on for about 30 seconds, and we will begin our next thing. Now, the next things that happen are very simple. I have bought crushed pecans, and if you don't like them as crushed as they are, you can always crush them a little more.
With the kitchen scissors.
Yeah, always the kitchen scissor. And you know, this helps with anxiety, people that might bug you during the day, or a political problem or thought that you have. You can take it out on your pecans, and they only taste better. They're rarely bruised, and their feelings are never hurt. So, from here, it's true. It's true. Oh, look it, we're bubbling that right up. So, we are going to bring out our, there we go, our very melty butter. And I have a couple of methods that I like, but I got to tell you, my mother used to do this, and I thought this was crazy when she did it, but she would take a paper towel, and she would look like she was obsessive compulsive, no. And she would wrap it around her hand, and she would dip it right into the butter. And then she would take that and pat it along the bread. And I thought, strange, but it seems to work so very well as an adult. And you
really
want
helpful
to...
if you don't have any of those pastry brushes.
Yes, that's exactly right. So there you have it. And I do have a pastry brush, and I actually have some paint brushes that I like that I use in the kitchen too. Because you never know how, you know, that pastry brush can be a little stiff, and sometimes you want to get into some other places. So this is the first thing we do, is that we cover it with this Delicioso butter. And you can use non-butter butter. But I figure if we're going to eat something like baked brie, you're not going for the healthy, low-carb, no-cholesterol method, and so you might as well just enjoy yourself.
Just live it up.
Yeah, and this is not something I recommend daily on a healthy diet plan by any way, means, shape, or form. But it is definitely something that is easy to do, and I got to tell you, I don't care whether it's summer or winter, people don't seem to have a problem eating it. They will just take right to it. Kitchen scissors, once it's sculpting to a mouth. There we go. See if we can keep that on. Once you get it covered with the butter, or as I like to say, lubed up. Once we get that there, I keep the butter handy because we're probably going to use that again. The next step is simply going to be, and you notice that I've dirtied no dishes. It takes no dirtying of dishes.
Sure.
It's a pretty scarily easy and clean thing.
That's, again, super mom-friendly.
That's exactly right. And I take the brown sugar and I put it over the breadsticks. And you just sort of feed it out of your hands like you would feed a pigeon. And if you've never fed a pigeon, sorry. But that's how you do it too. If you throw it at them, they get ticked off. So you always had to sprinkle the pigeon feed.
Another good rule, yeah.
Yeah, little New Yorker in me, 11 years, fed a lot of pigeons. And you see that it starts to already look delicious uncooked.
Yes.
Which is one of the best parts about it. And then I take it also and around the edge. And you can bring it into the sides. Because remember that the sugar is going to start to bake. And it can get sticky. So we sort of want to try to keep it as contained as we can, and you can press it into the ring you see here on this side that I'm just sort of pressing it on. And I use light brown sugar. My mom sometimes used dark brown sugar. Don't use sugar.
Okay.
It'll be a little too non-peasanty, hearty stock. Yeah, it gets a little bit Dunkin' Donuts on you there. And don't get me wrong, I like me some Dunkin' Donuts, so, but not on our baked brie.
No.
And so I'm going through here, and we're here now. We've taken that. We're going to close that right back up. Put that to the side. And the next thing we're going to do is take our pecans, which we crushed even more, and we are going to sprinkle some on the top of the brie.
Oh, that's going to be delicious.
Yeah. And they get all toasty eventually, which is good. And then also stick them right into the brie and along the edges. And also, whatever we do to the big wheel, pardon the childhood toy reference, we also want to do to the sticks. Yeah, so you're going to take them in there, and you can squeeze them in, because remember, it's going to expand, it's going to change. And on a little pan like this, you might notice that the sticks grow enough to actually grow together. And that's just fine, because then it looks like a little double loaf. If you want to keep them single and free of each other, you just use a little bigger pan and transfer it later. Alright. Okay. And it's good because you get really dirty hands, and that's one of my favorite things.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to cook, you just, you know.
A sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. Yeah. And I always loved Julia Childs because she just made a holy bloomin' mess every single show, and she just didn't care. Things would be flying around. She'd have it in her hair. She didn't care. She was good with it. All right. Now, it looks a little amorphous once we've gotten to this point, and it often does. And we are going to make our next step and put it into the oven. The original time on this particular packaging is 12 strips. They will be in for 10 to 13 minutes. I'm going to say 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we got a shot of that. We're going to stick these in here. Yes, keep them close at hand. And let's keep our fingers crossed. And let's see what might actually happen to this. Into the oven we go. Great. Now I'm going to do a little straightening up. We didn't end up using any more butter, and I think that worked out well. So, you know, a couple of tablespoons. I was a little wasteful. Sad to waste butter. So sad. But sometimes we do. We might have to use that later. Sure. Now, as that's baking, and one would definitely want to actually put the timer on when saying 15 minutes. Yes, and it will beep shortly. Now, while we take a little break and have a gentle sip of wine.